Henry Davis is a man. I love God. I'm a family man, resident of South Bend, and a community servant. Well, it just depends on who you're talking to. It depends on what situation someone has dealt with me or haven't dealt with me. You know, you have rumors that go here, there, and everywhere, and so it just depends on if you have a personal relationship with me or some type of like professional interaction. It just depends on who the person is. My biggest assets to the city would be my level of experience and my visionary abilities. I am a proven legislator, I'm a proven community advocate, I'm proven to make things happen and get results. So my biggest asset is definitely my ability to make things happen. I had my hand in quite a few things. I made sure that Lincoln Way and Western Avenue has a corridor project that you see, business expansion. Another business expansion is that many of us enjoy is Linden Grill being downtown. And we also worked really hard to ensure that the Charles Black Center was expanded. So you saw $4.5 million going inside of the Charles Black Center is a lot better than it once was. Looking on Western Avenue this coming summer, you're going to see a streetscapes project where you will see between the blocks of Kentucky and Falcon get refurbished. New street lights, curbs, sidewalks, new street. So it's working, and the list goes on. I'm absolutely frustrated with the conditions of the city. I'm frustrated with the fact that 40% of the African American population lives in poverty. I'm frustrated with the fact that over 10% of the African American population is unemployed or underemployed. I'm completely frustrated with the fact that my car continues to talk to me while I drive down the street because of the potholes I have to dodge or run into. And I'm really frustrated with the fact that we don't have enough jobs that make sure folks are able to pay their mortgage. So I think there's a lot of work to do. Frustration doesn't need to turn into me not wanting to do anything. Frustration turns to me into wanting to make sure that we have a brighter future for today, for ourselves, our families, and our children. That is a major tool to changing the landscape of your environment. If you don't get out and vote, you allow someone else to make decisions for you. And by us not participating in the electoral process, we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to continue to lose. So I think it's highly important that folks participate and vote. You have to sow a seed. It doesn't grow immediately, but you have to sow that seed and you have to make sure you water that seed and make sure that it grows. So I encourage everyone to vote. The power of voting goes into many places. So if you are registered to vote, you have the ability not only to vote, but to make sure that you put someone in office that can speak your concerns and your needs. The other side of being registered to vote, you have the ability to be picked for jury duty so that you are able to sit on a jury to help someone that may be your peer, to give them proper representation and opportunity to make it out of the judicial system that simply is corrupt. So we have an opportunity to do a number of things here on this land, in this earth, in the United States of America to ensure success for us, but we have to participate. If we don't participate, then we're going to continue to get the same results. The state of South Bend is always on the incline. I never look at it necessarily on the decline. I think we have a lot of promise here. I just think that it's one of those things where you see a kid that's really good at basketball or some type of sport, an enormous amount of potential, but they're not exercising it properly, they're not participating in drills properly, they're not showing up to practice properly, and their diet may be off. And that's how I see South Bend. South Bend has to figure out what it wants to be, identify what it is, and make that their identity. And once we were able to do that, then we were going to be able to climb out of whatever hole that we're in right now and become what we are supposed to be, a model city. there's enormous amount of responsibility for a councilman if they are interested in fulfilling an assignment. But our number one goal and number one job is to make sure that the budget itself is in check, meaning that the budget dollars that we get back from the state from property taxes are matching up with the priorities for the city, and we're not erroneously spending that money. Time and time again, you hear about all these different tax abatements and these public-private partnerships that go through the TIF districts, and you see all of these developers getting millions of dollars. Meanwhile, you are having pothole-filled streets, and those things are not really matching up for us, right? So we have to make sure that we're ensuring the success of the people who actually live here in South Bend. The other thing is that I'm the legislative arm and part of the body of the government. So it's my duty to make sure that when we see things that need correction, or there's things that we see that are going great in other areas that we want to bring back here, that we sit down with a pen and a piece of paper and we put together some legislation to make sure that that thing can happen here. So our job is like twofold, threefold, fivefold. I mean, advocacy plays a part in that as well. And so someone calls and says the trash hasn't been picked up, or there is too much violence, we need to have a town hall meeting, we need to figure this thing out. I mean, your council person is your point person, it's the closest person to the public. So the job is difficult, can be very difficult, but I'm willing and ready to move forward with it. I'm excited. Have we spent the money properly for the city of South Bend? Yes and no. It's a mixed bag. It depends on if you see downtown being a greater asset than our neighborhoods. I personally believe that we shouldn't have to choose between downtown and our neighborhoods. I think that they're all there together. And so that calls us to be a little bit more creative on how we spend our dollars. We just can't give millions and millions and millions of dollars to downtown development and forget about our city streets, sewers, the sidewalks, curbs perhaps, or even our school corporation. So I think that, there was an enormous amount of thought to make sure downtown looks great, but I think that we missed the ball when it came to our neighborhoods. Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is something that, I was known for. I will always say no or nay to, a spending request if in fact I thought the spending request was not sufficient. But what I do know now is that it's not always a no. Sometimes you can offer legislation to change up what may be going on down there. And I've done that in past years. But as I'm coming back to the council, I'm interested in ensuring the fact that we can develop jobs from a lot of the spending requests that are happening. So you're talking about community benefit agreements, you're talking about zoning changes to make sure that if we have 100 condos downtown, that X amount of those condos are being reserved for the folks that already live down there. The community benefit agreement, if someone's coming in and asking us for a partnership, public-private partnership, where we're using our TIF dollars, is incumbent upon us to make sure that we're reserving X amount of jobs for local labor and making sure that folks who are here, who are willing and ready to work, but also skilled to work, are getting a share of those jobs. Our public school corporation is our number one tool to develop here economically. If our public school corporation is not producing children ready to go to college or ready to work, then the city of South Bend cannot produce economically here. And the only way that we are able to recruit employers to this area is, in fact, if our school corporation is making the grade. Where do we get caught up at? So why would a job or a business move to this area and worry about a school corporation? Well, number one is because they have workers that come in, and those families need somewhere where their kids can be educated properly. Number two, they want to make sure that when we are producing students who graduate, that those students can actually come in and work. So it makes sense for the business to have a public education system that's working really well. And it makes sense for us to make sure that that's happening because we can recruit. Our school corporation can receive an enormous amount of support and help from city government. There is a tremendous amount of ways by us de-tipping some of the areas which will allow more money to go into the school corporation. How can we help with the parks, the public parks and recreation department? Well, we can start working together in partnership with sporting programs. There is a number of things that we can do with the school corporation. We can make sure that the neighborhoods are actually producing children who are happy and ready to go to school. We have neighborhoods now that are subpar. If you look at these neighborhoods where some of these kids are coming from, you know why they're not going to school and they're not learning. They're presented with no food option, meaning they have food deserts. They're coming out of dangerous areas where there's been, many murders or gunshots daily. And they're coming out of areas that obviously needs public investment. So we can't fault our kids always why they're not making the grade at school or why they are, living a violent culture, because that's where they're coming from. So the city has to be responsible for making sure that the environment that these children are coming from, these families are coming from, is at a higher level than what it is right now. How can you not with a guy with this smile? But no, seriously, I'm invested. I'm serious, and I have a proven track record. I said earlier that I have well over 20 pieces of legislation that I've passed through the city council. I understand the job, but not only did I understand the job, when I left out for the last 3 years, I went back to the grassroots. I worked with the LaSalle Park Neighborhood Association as their president, and guess what? We're putting in a streetscapes project on Western Avenue, and that came through advocacy, just not by putting a piece of paper on the table with a pen on top of it. We actually put some things together through organizing and ensuring the success of our area. So I'm interested in developing the South Bend, whether I'm in office or not. I'm interested in making sure that the things that we desire on this side of the river are being adequately and efficiently given to us. And guess what? I live here too, so I believe in it, I want it, and make sure you do vote for Henry Davis Jr. on May 7th. Crime is like a huge thing. Anywhere you go, no one wants to be in a crime-ridden environment. No one wants to see crime. No one wants to be a victim of crime. But one thing I want to tell you is that we have to stop looking at crime as someone being shot, someone being stabbed, someone being murdered. Those things are terrible. We have to begin to start paying attention to what's going on prior to the act. No grocery stores, inadequate or no housing, no schools, city services not being rendered or substantially being rendered. What do you think is going to happen in that environment? I call that the crime. I call that the reason why all of these things are occurring. You can't ask someone to behave themselves in the store and they haven't ate in the last 30 days. You can't ask a fish to climb a ladder. We have to put our people into a position of success, and that starts with their environment. So if the environment is what it is, then you can expect that environment to produce those type of results. So again, I say that's the crime if those things are not available, if the environment is not conducive. How do we stop it? How do we slow it? Guess what? Make sure those resources are available in those environments. And that's the easy answer. But we are dealing now with generational poverty. We're dealing with just all kinds of generational things that, don't play to our favor. So we have to correct the environment and make sure that the environment is not producing crime. Not the people, the environment. Poverty is just not our inability to have a job, because we have people here that are making $14,000 or less a year that they live in impoverished situations. So it's just not the check that you bring home. Poverty comes in a lot of different ways, and it produces itself, it reproduces itself, it continues to birth the same results. South Bend has had a major issue with poverty, just not over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Over the last probably 30 or 40 years. It started back when urban renewal came in, and they were snatching out some of the houses to produce these great outcomes that never came in. It happened when Linden School was torn down, and they decided to make sure that folks were being bused out of their areas. It also happened when West Washington Street used to be called the Block, and had a number of small businesses from the African American community that produced jobs and also expanded the tax base in the area. And that was torn down and was replaced with housing that was supported by the government. And so poverty is being reproduced and being produced to ensure somebody else has a paycheck. And that is a larger conversation. I can't get into that on this one particular video. But poverty is impacting us because some folks are not being allowed to grow economically in our area. And that's being done on purpose. And so we have to put ourselves in a political position, vote for me, in order for us to get out of that hole that has been built for us for the last 30, 40, 50 years maybe.